Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
It's time once again for everybody to come aboard that Green Screens Media train. What is up? This is One and Done with your boys. I am your host, the humble conductor of the aforementioned train, Jay Heinrich. You can follow me on Twitter at Dr. William Cannon. Deal with all of my nonsense over there in Elon's hellhole. Yeah, it is what it is. We've got a good one lined up for you today. We've got a 12-gamer tomorrow on Tuesday night like normal. Here to talk about it with me. You know him and you love him. You can find him on them Twitter streets at FantasyNav. He is Eric Romoff, but I'm going to go down here to the bottom of the screen to El Capitano, the captain of our ship of Green Screens Media. Follow him on Twitter at MC Holland 34. Mr. Money, Mike Holland, what it do?
I'm feeling good. I'm ready. Got a little taste of some action. You know, I think me and our guy Fantasy Nav were top 10 in that Bonanza seat. So we're gonna try to strike that thing down again for tomorrow's slate. It looks like a fun one, but we're gonna bury the lead here, man. Welcome back. Our guy's been out the last few shows. He's back and ready for some action, man. You feeling good?
The rumors of my demise were greatly exaggerated. Had a little, Eric gave me the old plastic surgery shout out. Actually, a little sinuplasty, straighten up the old right in there and help me breathe a little bit. Good to be back, though. Missed a couple of shows, I know, but of course y'all held it down. I had to, visit a little bit in the comments section too, let you know how I was feeling, let you know how that TCU at 35-1 is my favorite bet on the whole board right now, and I'm still feeling that way in this moment. But another day, another time for that. Eric, you good tonight, man? You ready to get on this slate a little bit? Talk a little bit about where we're going to go with this?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Definitely happy to have you back. Happy to have everyone out there in the viewing audience back. Yes. Now that we've put a nail in the coffin of the NFL season, it's college basketball's time to shine, and we are 3 Sundays out from Selection Sunday. It's kind of wild. So things are picking up. I got way too much of my bankroll tied up in qualifiers. It's gonna be a fun Monday.
All that money y'all won on the Super Bowl last night. I know some of y'all hit your squares. Some of you hit your some of your wagers if you hit tails on the coin toss, like Pat McAfee did for $20K. You put a little bit on in this big jam tomorrow with what we're going to roll through today. We got a little 12-gamer, like I said, starts at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. $15 big jam, $3K to first, a little bit different. We've seen $2K, we've seen $5K. We got $3K to first in the big jam tomorrow. We also have that 33rd seat in the bracket bonanza up for grabs, as Mike so eloquently mentioned earlier on. Got a couple of games here that really stand out in terms of KenPom projected totals. Couple on the low side that, we'll probably won't even mention any of these guys on these teams. But why don't we go ahead and start with a game that is tied for the highest projected total tomorrow, and that's Missouri traveling to Auburn. Auburn 6-point favorites at home, 156-point projected total, 81-75 Auburn projected there. Now, Missouri, obviously coming off an exciting victory there over the Volunteers, who have lost now 2 in a row by, excruciating fashion at the buzzer. And Missouri just happened to be the latest winner in that instance. Traveling now to Auburn with a little bit of momentum, 4th offensive efficiency in the country, 52nd in tempo. They can score the ball on any given night. Mike, there's some interesting players here on this roster. One of them a little more expensive that we've seen the ceiling lately, and a guy named Kobe. Where else are we going to go with these Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at Kobe Brown. He's 8,600. He's very volatile for someone that is at this price point, man. I mean, you look at a lot of the guys that are around him at this price point, and you typically get a better floor. I don't necessarily care for the matchup again at Auburn. I mean, it's going to be a very tough environment. They're coming off the loss at home to Alabama, so they're going to want to get this one. Missouri's coming off the high right now, traveling to Auburn. I kind of like Auburn if you're looking at the betting market here to cover. Missouri plays at a very fast tempo. Brown is someone that can disappear, though. So 8,600, I feel like there's just some guys around him that I would rather play. But if he gets it going, man, the rates are nice. And he's shooting 46% from three, which is kind of crazy for his size. And you get him at that guard spot if you find, and there's some value on the slate. So you're going to be able to play 2 or 3 of these guys up here in the 8-9K range. So I don't mind him. I don't think I'm going to be going there. Really a priority for me in this game is going to be Demoy Hodge. He's at 6,800. For a cash game, he might be a core 4 lock here for cash. So, just a guy that routinely lives in the 20s and 30 fantasy point production. He's now 6,800, 25% shot rate, a 5% steal rate, really gets it done on the defensive end. He's 39% from distance on 175 attempts. So, for me, it's one of those guys that, in an up-tempo style game that can really rack up some fantasy points. We're used to playing him kind of in that just over that 7K range, so don't mind getting a piece there. You can also look down here. If you're playing in a large field GPP tournament, Nick Honor, maybe he's 4,700. You're begging for an 18 to 20 from him. I played him one game where he actually, had a ceiling type game. I don't know that this is the game. It's a guy that has a 14% usage rate and a 14% shot rate. Yeah, kind of scary. You need 5 to 6x in tournaments to, really set yourself apart and get up there to win that 3K tomorrow. So, if I'm playing 20 lineups, I'll probably pass on him. I would much rather go to DeAndre Golston, who has a higher usage rate, a higher shot rate, both 25%. He shoots 37% from three. Now, Auburn's pretty good defending the three, but there's just going to be so many possessions in this game that you figure some of these guys are going to have decent games here. So I like Golston. You can use him as a one-off play, or he's even a stackable piece in this game. For a team projected to score 75 points, right? Outside of Brown, most of the guys you want to get are almost at average salary. So, you can take a look at Golston. Played well last game, almost a 30 piece there. So, really, that's kind of it for me. I'm not really on, Noah Carter. Or, I don't know, Sean Eastie's okay. I haven't really rostered him much. The pricing's nice. Eric, are you looking at anybody else from this roster?
Yeah, I am. And before we do, we've got none other than the man himself, Anthony G, checking in the chat. What's up, Anthony? Appreciate you swinging through. Ready to find some winners, and he's hitting you with the eyes emoji on Hodge at 6.8K. Feels like a really solid play overall. For me, the name that comes to mind that we haven't talked about is Sean East, right? You mentioned the price tag, and for me, that's kind of the annoying part, right? He's coming in hot, right? His minutes have been walking up a little bit here lately. Put up a 31 spot last game, 22 the game before that. But also his price tag is following right along, right? So you really need this trend to hold if he's going to pay off that price tag. And he doesn't really do a whole lot, right? He can hand out some dimes. That's probably the biggest contributing factor to his game. 21% assist rate. His usage doesn't really, inspire a whole lot of optimism. 19% there, 18% shot rate. He won't be a popular option, so he'll have that working for him. But ultimately, he's going to have to hand out a lot of assists, and I think that Missouri is really going to have to, push to cover that 6-point spread. We're going to have to see them scoring more buckets with East handing out that dime, if we really want him to pay off, the kind of low 5K price tag.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling, Mike, I kind of feel like you think this game is going to go under a little bit by the way you were talking earlier, and I definitely agree with you there. Auburn is 11-2 at home this year, and one of them just happened, against the number 1 team in the country. So, this is an environment that Auburn is going to try to dictate the pace and play their game. They can play in the 60s and win games if they need to. I think we might try to see that and, drag this down a little bit. But let's talk about that Auburn team now. 59th offensive efficiency, 21st defensive efficiency. They're trying to play that brand of basketball. Hunter 60th in tempo, so they get up and or they get a pace up here in this matchup. Obviously, a little bit more expensive option here at the top for Auburn, Mike, and then a little bit of value smacked in the middle there. Is this in this situation, knowing that this might play a little bit under the projected total, although even if it ends up in the 145s, this still might produce a lot of value in this game. It just might come down to picking the right player. Who are we looking at? Who are we looking at for Auburn?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with the sentiment, man. Like, even if it plays 145 to 147, because of the pricing, like typically when you see these games up in the 150, you're seeing like a couple of guys, like if it's Xavier against Creighton, like there's, a ton of guys that are 8Ks, some, a 9K guy. And then even their like, lower tier guys are 7K. And this one, I mean, really the two guys that really stick out are Brown on, Missouri. And then for Auburn is Janai Broome. And I faded Broome on that Saturday slate. It ended up working out. I had a little bit of foul trouble on a bogus call, but he's starting to play 30 minutes consistently, and that's all we've been begging for. He's put up some massive games in the 40s, even coming close to touching a 50 recently. And the rates are out of control, man. Like coming over from Morehead State, he was one of our top transfers. 10% block rate. Like it's just crazy. A 26% usage rate, 40%, almost a 40% combined rebounding rate. So, yeah, he basically does it all except for shooting threes. So, in this type of matchup, I really like him here. I feel like the 9,200, I feel like nobody's going to really want to touch that because you have some guys right around him that, more popular names, right? We're going to get a lot of people that, haven't been playing CBB recently and diving into some of this NFL money. You watch Janai Broome, and, man, he's just a lot of fun to watch as long as he stays out of foul trouble. The thing, too, is that he's got working for him is that, Missouri's 362nd in opponent offensive rebounding percentage. So, easy putbacks, opportunities for some cheap assists with this 11% assist rate. You got to like this team in general because, Missouri comes in here with the 215th rated defense and efficiency. So I like a ton of Auburn guys here. I played some Wendell Green. I don't know if he really has the upside. I'd rather slide down to look at Jalen Williams if you're not playing Janai Broome, and he's 6,900. He's a guy that can flirt with, 30 to 35. Played him a lot this year. The price has come up slightly. I'm still okay with paying the 6,900, kind of like in the mid-tier. I like all the options, man. You got some cheap plays. You got some expensive plays that you really like, and the mid-tier is solid. So it'll be a ton of fantasy points tomorrow. But Jalen Williams is a guy that can fill up the stat sheet, right, even on the defensive side as well. And you're getting $2,300 savings coming down from Broome. Alan Flanagan's maybe the guy that I'm least excited about. He's 5,700. I don't know that I can play him at that price. He's more of a I don't know, man. Like I just, if you want to plan to be different, I guess you could go there. The floor is okay sometimes, but even that's a little volatile. So I'm probably just going to pass on Flanagan. I'd rather just go down to KD Johnson, who's 4,100, and I should have played him in that Alabama game. He's a guy that is super volatile, but he's going to get his shots, man. Like, that's what he does. He just chucks. He's, 23% shot rate. He's only shooting 25% from three, but when you take 1,000, shots, like you're going to get some of those to fall. He's 4,100 coming off that 29 spot, man. But, in the last 5 games, you look at it, it's a 29, a 12, and 11, and then 2 more games at 20 and 21. So definitely like KD Johnson here. I think one of the most important things here is that, Auburn's not great from 3, but that's not really where Missouri gets attacked. Missouri, when you look at it, they're 342nd in opponent 2-point percentage as far as distribution. So, teams are predominantly scoring from 2-point. Auburn, they're not a great 3-point shooting team. You look at it like Jalen Williams, he's probably their best shooter at 37%. Flanagan's at 32%. KD Johnson, 25%. Even Wendell Green's under 30%. So, they're actually 88th in their own 2-point distribution percentage. So, these two numbers are kind of adding up here, which really makes me like someone like Jalen Williams, who can score inside and outside, Janai Broome, who can destroy inside, and then KD Johnson, who he's just going to take a ton of shots and do a bunch of different things while he's on the floor that can really set him apart from the 4,100. So. That's pretty much who I like in this matchup. Eric, is there anybody I maybe left off or anybody you're looking at?
Yeah, you kind of glanced over him. That's Wendell Green here. Coming in at 7.8K. What jumps off the page for him is really just math, right? Like all of his rates are insane. He's either at or near the lead of his team in all of these respective categories. 30% usage, 26% shot, that's second on the team, 31% assist. He can chip and dip, 3% steal. Like you mentioned, Auburn is not a team that's going to kill you from range, shooting 29% from 3-point in Green's case, but a player that is as involved in the entire game plan as Wendell Green in a significant pace up spot, right? We're looking at a team that's 160th in tempo. They're going up against a Missouri team that's 52nd, right? So, there's going to be a lot of extra possessions out there. There's going to be a few more assists in the mix, right? With Wendell Green, another player that can punish you both inside and outside, maybe not down low like a Janai Broom, right? But takes plenty of 2-pointers as well. It feels like this is the type of game that's setting up for him to get closer to that ceiling. And your point is fair, right? The concern is the ceiling. If he's going to push 8K, you want to see some 40s in his game log, and you kind of don't, right? He's really consistently in that sort of mid 30 range. You have to go back to South Carolina in the middle of January to get to a 40 spot, and even then is 40 on the nose, right? So definitely a safe play. I don't mind him in these kind of smaller single entry fields, or if you're playing a smaller qualifier, 100 or so players in the mix. Feels like he's a really good way to secure some points, but ultimately, if he's going to have a ceiling game, it feels like this is the type of environment where it's going to happen.
This is such a huge game in general in the middle of this conference. You got a couple of 7-5 teams. The SEC is only going to get 6, maybe 7 bids out of this. This game means a lot to both of these teams right now, sitting in the middle of the pack to keep their heads above water there. This is going to be fantastic. It's either going to be like fantastic basketball, or these kids are going to come out nervous as hell and play just ugly for a little bit and then settle in, which is very possible and could lead to a little bit under, but still some solid fantasy numbers put up by some of these fine young men. All right, that's game one of our showcase piece there. Thanks for checking us out. Obviously, our guy Anthony G always chiming in. We appreciate that, leaving those comments. If you're here and you're hanging out, hit those like and subscribe buttons. Do your part in the Green Screens Media universe. You can do it. I believe in you. All right, moving on to game number 2 here. A St. John's team that we love to talk about because of the potential. No, wait. The potential. We love to talk about them for the potential. And then it always just – I think we know how this conversation is going to go here, but I'm going to give you the metrics anyway. St. John's traveling to DePaul. Johnny's 2-point favorites here. 156-point total. Again, tied for the top total projected on the evening. 79-77 St. John's here. Let's start there with the Red Storm, Mike. Third in tempo. Anytime they're playing, they're going to be on this. They're going to be on this slate, and we're going to talk about them. And judging by the look on your face, you're as frustrated with our guy that we rode for so long. We've been hyping him up, and he just hasn't been really getting over the hump there for the price.
Yeah.
But what do you think about Soriano and a couple of these other guys here for St. John's in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I mean, now he's 8,700, so what is that? $100 less. I got him on the last slate at crazy low ownership, right? He still put up a 37, and he didn't really have a fantasy point until like 6 minutes into the game. So, and here comes DePaul. Whatever should I say? Here they go to DePaul. That is terrible when it comes to controlling the glass. The 344th in opponent offensive rebound percentage, so give a check mark to Soriano there. 308th in opponent free throw rate. He's a big body, post up, banging down there. Should probably get to the line 8 to 10 times. So, and you should be able to knock down get some assists with some knockdown shooters. So, yeah, I like him again. at some point he's going to go off for 40, 45. And at this point, I'm completely pot committed. So
all right, so that's the point, Mike. That's what I was sort of getting at is we're sort of waiting for that big game, right? Like the prices come down a little bit, but I've been waiting on that 45 spot, and it just hasn't been there, man. Like I get that this is a good setup for him today, but it's tough for me to keep going back to that well.
Yeah, it's annoying. It feels like Sonogo, right? Like you feel like they should go for 45 at some point and really pay this price tag off. And it's just not happening. But me, myself, I've spent way too much money in the last couple of weeks on Soriano to give up. So if he goes for 51, I'm not missing it. This is a perfect spot again. So, yeah. Now, look, like if I play 20 lineups, like I'll probably have 4 or 5 shares of him, right? There's just a lot of good forwards on this slate. But he's in one of the top game environments, and this is supposed to be a close game, and DePaul is not great inside. Like we know that about them. So, yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to jump off the cliff with me again, I don't know how many lives we have left in the season, but yeah, I'm going back to the well. You got Posh Alexander here at 6,600. I guess we're gonna figure out what's going on with Curbelo, right? It feels like he'll probably be in the transfer portal here pretty soon. Anytime you get a coach's decision well before tip and you're in street clothes, you got to figure, something's going on with this team. It's always a thing here with Mike Anderson and these Johnnies. But, for Posh, man, like he started off really well in that last game. Could he put up 35-40 in this spot? He definitely could, man. But he really got to knock down his shots. He doesn't have a high shot rate. He's got to get some steals. He's got to get some assists. Otherwise, he's just going to be living that low 20 range. But he's another guy, like if you want to play him as a one-off, I don't mind that. I never like stacking him with anybody. I save that typically for the Soriano and that Daiwusu stacks. Daiwusu's price has now come up. It is now 6,200, and I feel like I got to jump off at this point. You need 30 to 35, and could he get there? Yeah, but the problem is that David Jones is kind of back, and we just don't know what's going on with Curbelo. And also the rotation has picked up. So, the price doesn't feel right anymore. So I'm gonna, if somebody else wants to play him at 6,200, go ahead. AJ Storr is intriguing, but now with all these guys, kind of coming back, and you got to feed Soriano. Jones is back; he's going to get his shots. Like Storr is somebody when some of these guys were out that was crushing it. Talented freshman. They need to get this kid some shots. Shooting 44% from 3. The peripherals aren't great. Obviously, I think next year he's going to be a guy beginning of the year that we're going to want to get onto very early before his price rises. If he's even still, obviously, I think Mike Anderson's days are numbered here, so he might be transferring out. So that's a whole other story. But hey, look, DePaul doesn't do anything great defensively. They're 235th in opponent 3-point percentage. Teams are shooting 35% from 3. So, yeah, I like Storr as well. So for me, it's Soriano. I don't mind, playing Storr with Soriano or even a Daiwusu in a large field because not a lot of people are going to go to that pairing combination. That'd be really different in case they do go off. Posh is more of a one-off play for me, and so is AJ Storr. I know your guy, David Jones, Eric, you've won a few tournaments with this guy, so I know you have a soft spot, and that price is right, and it seems like he's back after an up and down year. What are your thoughts on Jones?
Yeah, Jones is definitely in my can't quit you category. But before we talk about him a little bit more, our guy Corey back up in this chat sounds like he's pot committed with Soriano as well. Unlike Sonogo, at least Soriano's kind of reached into that 40 range a couple of times. It feels like Sonogo is just constantly in the mid to high 30s. But he wants to know specifically Soriano and Storr. Is that the stack that you prefer, or are you looking to put two different pieces together for the Johnnies?
Yeah, like I mentioned, Soriano with the Daiwusu or Storr is preferred stacking options. The Daiwusu, obviously, people won't go there because it's too much money and they haven't done much together. But yeah, I can definitely see Storr with Soriano. He's probably my preferred stacking option, but even that's a little risky. Kind of talking it through, right? Like St. John's, it's been more of a disappointment. So maybe just using these guys as one-offs as we get closer to the lock. We'll see how we feel. But I always end up getting at least one stack or two in there out of my 20 builds.
Without fail. And it's definitely fair to say that Storr's playing well. I think the caliber of play he showed on the court probably has a little bit to do with Curbelo being a coach's decision and potentially heading for the portal, right? They've got someone waiting in the wings that can play pretty well. You talked about my guy David Jones. Made his way back to the court after missing some time. He was actually traveling due to the passing of his father. Had his first game back this last slate and looked like he was absolutely ready to jump out the gym. Right, he came out, put up almost a 30 burger. So definitely getting it done on the fantasy side. But chucked up 17 shots, chipped in 7 rebounds. Right, just absolutely was out there with that high motor. Felt like he was really reaching back for a little extra in that first game. And I think that's something that we see continue, right? His rates are phenomenal, 26% usage rate, shooting at the highest rate on his team, 31% there, 28% combined rebound rate, doing okay from 3, 32% there. And specifically in this game against DePaul, right? I mean, obviously, there are only 2 teams that are running at a faster clip than St. John's this year, but DePaul is no slouch in the pace category either. So should have a few more extra possessions going around. You mentioned the weaknesses, right? 344th in opponent rebound percentage. So with that 28% combined rebound rate, couple extra boards, couple extra putbacks, and I think David Jones absolutely has the path to another ceiling game on this slate tomorrow.
If you're not willing to pay for Soriano, like I'm not, and you want a couple of pieces of the pie on this side, why not a Jones store stack and just try to see if it's that type of an environment to where if Jones is, like Eric, like you said, if that trajectory keeps heading up and stores threes are going in, you could be in for a nice little payoff there in getting both of them for 11.7K, getting a couple of guys there. That's a nice way to get your lineup going. DePaul's coming into this matchup here with 6 straight losses. They're not good. Like, this is just they don't care about certain aspects of the game, and it's really easy to see when you watch them. But that in turn, they do get up and down pretty well. 98th in tempo in the nation, and when you combine that with St. John's tempo of 3rd, you're going to get some buckets, and that's why this score is projected so high. This is a tricky one for me because I've played Gibson quite a bit this year, and I've been burned by Gibson, I feel like, quite a few times this year. But again, this is a nice spot, the pace-up spot here for DePaul. And when they are playing at their best, a lot of it is running through Gibson. What say you on our guy, and then a couple of other plays maybe on this Blue Demon team, Mike?
Yeah, I like Gibson. So look, the Saturday slate we talked about Bynum. He's the primary guard, right? He had a phenomenal game. He was in our core. I worried a little bit because Posh is a great defender, but he didn't have trouble getting it done. So I'm not going to worry about Gibson getting it done here either. Guards have kind of had their way with St. John's, and it's mostly because there's just so much opportunity for fantasy points. Like, St. John's is 277th in opponent assisted field goals. So who's right up there in the assist percentage, right? 29%, almost 30%, Gibson. So you like them there. St. John's also 293rd in opponent steal percentage. Opponents are getting a steal on 10% of their possessions. So you figure there's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9 steals, maybe 10 steals in this game. Gibson has a 3% steal rate, so you figure there's some ceiling here at 8,300 for Gibson. So he's someone that's really heavily on my radar. Could easily see him getting into a 35-40 fantasy point game. I don't think a lot of people are going to go here because, one, that matchup is kind of scary with Alexander, and 2, you're right, Jay. I mean, he hasn't been great. I mean, he's got a 35 and a 37, before the last 3 games. So, it's there. That 4.5x is definitely there. So I'll be going to him quite frequently. These other guys in here, man, like, I just don't play Javon Johnson. I don't know, man. I just kind of slide down and really looking at just Gibson. But honestly, if you want to stack them right, because St. John's plays at such a fast pace and they are at home, I don't mind playing them from 1 to 4. It's like Raw Penn, who's 6,500. Look, the game log's ugly, but he plays minutes. It's the pace. Like, somebody on this team, there's going to be plenty of fantasy points to be had. And these are those price points, under 7K that someone could easily 4.5x. and set you up nicely if Gibson goes off for 5x. So I think the guy I'd rather go to is going to be Deshaun Nelson. 24% usage rate, 20% shot rate, 16% assist rate. Grab some boards as a 3% block rate. Like, it feels like this type of environment is pretty well set up for the guy. I mean, we've seen him flash 30, 35 fantasy point upside in the past. I do like him as a stacking partner with Emoji Gibson. I think the rest of this team really has to deal with Terry and kind of what's going on with his injury. Caleb Murphy came back. He was a top 100 transfer for us out of South Florida. He's 4,300. It still feels like it's too much. Like, if he was 3,600, I'd be like, yo, let's get this in. But for Murphy, right, like, he's just not doing much. So for me, I'm really sticking to Gibson and looking at Nelson. Johnson's price is intriguing, man. His minutes are intriguing. Eric, I don't know, man. Like, I just haven't played much of him just because, he's been in the 20s basically. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, he's another one of these annoying plays where, like, everything on paper feels like it sets up for him to have really solid fantasy output, and he just never quite gets there, right? He's usually floating around in kind of the mid to high 20s, and just for good measure, he'll sprinkle in a 12 spot or a 19 spot to really just make you eat it when you're paying $7K for him. I mean, look, this is, they're playing up against the Red Storm, which is running at the third fastest clip in the country. So, that obviously is a high tide that will raise all boats. He shoots at a decent rate. He's 24% there. He's got a solid assist rate for a forward. He's 13% in that regard. And specifically, that match St. John's is 227th in opponent assists per field goal made. So, as these buckets are going through, St. John's is allowing a lot of assists on those. And, for as much as we want to bemoan this, this kind of skid for the Blue Demons, they're projected to score 77 points, right? So there's a decent chance that, there's going to be some assists associated with those. And then also, I want to go back to the Nelson play. 6.4K is a pretty nice price tag. What I want to call out specifically, the last time that he got paced up against Marquette, he was a rebound and a point away from a double-double, and he already put up 31 points in that regard, right? So, if past his prologue, the last time that Nelson was getting paced up, had a ceiling game and was this close to absolutely breaking the slate. So those are the two names that jump out for me on the DePaul side.
It's a rough team to watch play sometimes, but the fantasy points are there, and that's how you win cash. So you got to pay attention to these DePaul Blue Demons. That wraps up game number 2 of our showcase series tonight. One more to go. Thanks for being here and checking us out. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about some of these cats that we're talking about. Maybe there's somebody that we've missed. We do, Mike's putting in the work. Eric's putting in the work. We're all putting in the work, and we're getting these guys out to you. But if there's something that you see, maybe somebody that we're a little bit down on that you think is going to go crazy, break that slate, let us know. Leave us a comment. Smash those like and subscribe buttons, too, while you're at it. We appreciate you. All right, game number 3 of our showcase set tonight. A little bit lower projected total, 149 here, but we can deal with that for sure. NC State traveling to Syracuse in that 2-3 zone. NC State a 1-point favorite, so 75-74 projected score on the road there for the Wolfpack. Now in the top 25, number 23, playing pretty well, and we're looking at a efficient team. They get the ball up and down. They can score it. They've got some star power. Guys, there's only 10 players, 8K or more on this slate. So if we're going to be investing in some of these top guys, we're really going to need to hit. And the star power is here on NC State with our guy, Terquavion Smith. Has a chance to pay this off here in this matchup. Possibly, Mike. I like Smith. I'm going to have him mixed into what I'm doing. Are you? And who else are you looking at in the Wolfpack?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a rotation of Smith, Joyner, or Burns. Maybe even a Morcell. All these guys, like, one of them is going to go off. Like, it happens all the time against this Syracuse 2-3 zone. I think for me, like, Smith, like, not a lot. And you mentioned it too, man, 10 guys over 8K. Like, you're going to be able to build any lineup that you want, which has not been the case over the last 4 or 5 slates that we've covered, you can do whatever you want. So that's going to be interesting, but it's also going to lead to like some massive scores. And look, it's not going to feel pretty to click Jaquavion Smith and use some of that salary when you have a bunch of forwards and even some other guys like a Jalen Pickett and Baylor Shireman's on the slate, right? Like, but this matchup is juicy, man. Like he could absolutely nuke this this game and go for a 50 bomb. I mean, insane usage, insane shot rate, 221 attempts from three. Like it's ridiculous, shooting 34%. You know, he's put up 40, 45 fantasy points. I would just, man, it's tough because you look below him and the other guys that are there, and you know that these guys can also nuke too. And Jarkel Joyner, like 1,000 less, coming off a 53 spot. Who, look, he doesn't go bonkers with the shot rate, right? But he shoots 35% from three. You know, he's got the high assist rate as well. He can do a bunch of different things too to bust up this zone. It really feels like who's going to play in the middle of this zone. It's going to be interesting because Jack Clark is returned to play that 4 spot. So, you know, they're going to start obviously Smith, Joyner. We'll see if Clark starts here. We got Burns in there, and then you have Casey Morsell. So it feels like Jarkel Joyner may get the first taste because he's more of like he is the true point guard on this team. Jaquavion's more of the off-ball guard. One of those two is going to probably be in the middle of this zone because they need Morsell out on the three, you know, to kick out for 3. So he's probably going to stay out on the 3-point line. Jack Clark, I don't know if they trust him really to kind of be in the middle yet, just coming back from injury. So, yeah, one of these two guys is going to sit in the middle of that zone, and they're going to destroy the slate. So, flip a coin. It's obviously easier to pay the 1,000 less to play Jarkel Joyner. But if this game gets into the mid-70s, if it goes over, like there's going to be so much fantasy goodness going around here. If they get, I don't know that they give DJ Burns an opportunity to play in the middle of this thing. He's 7,200, and man, I love watching him play. Like he's got a 51 in the last 5. He's also got a 35 and a 37 in there. He's got the tough draw though with Jesse Edwards, and if Edwards actually decides that he wants to play, 35 minutes instead of sitting on the bench with foul trouble for 15 of them, that could be a factor in playing Burns. So for me, I'm gonna prioritize the two top guards here. Kind of like Javon Johnson in the last game. Like I don't play a lot of Casey Morsell, and for his price, it feels okay. We know Syracuse weakness, right? Is there's 3 things we talk about it. And you can go back. We should just have it on loop whenever we hit the show. It's just like me talking about opponent offensive rebounding rates. You're gonna get a ton of those. They allow a ton of threes, 339th in the country in opponent 3-point rate. 259th in opponent 3-point percentage, so you're going to knock down a lot of those threes, and then 308th in opponent assisted field goals, so you're going to get assists on those threes. That's just how it goes, man. So I don't know, Eric. Like his price is so much better than the big 3. Are you riding with Morsell at all?
Man, the prophet of our time, Cardinal official, didn't have it right when he said everything locked like a 2-3 zone. That is the exact opposite. This 2-3 zone is one that you can absolutely take advantage of. I mean, there's not a whole lot that I like about Casey Morsell as a player that's sitting in the 6.7K range. He's not involved a lot. He needs to hit his shots, but his shot rate is only 17%. The things that are working for him, he'll chip and dip. He'll contribute a couple of steals and blocks here and there. He's shooting 45% from 3, right? So just absolutely draining him from range. He's taken 149 attempts on the season. He gets a ton of minutes. He takes a ton of threes, and specifically against this 2-3 zone, right? You mentioned it. I'll say it again. 259th in opponent 3-point percentage, 339th in opponent 3-point rate. So they are taking a ton of threes. They're getting those wide open looks. Like this is a game where he can drain 5 or 6 shots from range and really get to a point where he's making you feel good about 6.7K, but one of those rattles out and all of a sudden you're in that mid-20 range and you're not feeling awesome. So this is the game to do it. But
I'd agree with that. This is the game to do it, right? Like if there's one game that's going to happen, like it's this game, because Boeheim's probably saying like don't let Terquavion like let the other two guys beat you. And if it's, Joyner that's in the middle, I mean, that just leaves Morcell. I wouldn't be surprised if Morcell took 15 threes. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all.
Man. I mean, at that point, he's a lock, right? If he's going to chuck up 15 threes at 45%.
It wouldn't surprise me, man.
Even if he has a cold night, he's going to land 7 of them, right?
Yeah, but the problem is he doesn't do anything else. So it's like that's the issue here. I mean, he's got games where he shot 7, 8, 9 threes. Why not 13 or 14 in this game?
Why not us?
Yeah, why not? I mean, yeah, like you said, little chippy chip here outside of scoring, but not a ton there. And you're going to need him to hit those threes. But it's a very intriguing spot indeed with the way that Syracuse's defense is played. And again, I'll say this every time we talk Syracuse. I hate the 2-3 zone. I think it's the easiest defense in the world to beat. I don't get it. They're a mid team. They are boring to watch. They don't scare anybody. They don't have a great home court advantage right now. It's just nothing excites me about this Syracuse team. And the price that we're now having to pay for Jesse Edwards after a couple of 45, 47 spots, like, it's getting a little bit ridiculous for me. I don't know that I am willing to do that, but it's there. And like we said earlier, there's not exactly too many options there at the top. They're up like 13 or 14 threes against Cuse. Marcel should shoot that rock. Exactly, Corey. Yeah, man. Like, why not now? Well, this is the spot to do it, right? And if you're looking to gain an advantage, I think that the percentage is going to be pretty high for this guy.
God, why can't he do anything else though? Like, it just obviously it'd be a lock button if he did anything else, right?
Well, is this like, is he going to be like 20% tomorrow?
He is Darren Green, but Darren Green's can actually like get a couple of rebounds and a couple of assists, but he basically is Darren Green on this team.
Yeah. Well, and the opportunities there against Syracuse. Mike, talk about the Orangemen a little bit. Like I mentioned, Jesse Edwards up at the top of that price range. Some interesting options here, and in a game that there will be some points scored. What are we looking at with these Orangemen?
Yeah, I'm terrified, man. Like, I don't ever get Jesse. Like, when you click his name and you hit submit on your lineup, it is like one of the worst feelings in the world before the game even tips. So, therefore, I'm on the wrong side of the 45 because I hardly play him. And when I do, he drops a 22 and is in foul trouble. So, this matchup is weird, man. Of all the teams that they're playing, right, like, DJ Burns is a weird player to watch play. He's a lot of fun, the big guy, like, soft touch around the rim. Could he get Edwards in foul trouble? Maybe. He's also might have some hard time like getting shots up against Edwards. So he could be in line to block a ton of shots here. He could also be in line to double-double. Like, we know the 45. We know the 50 is an absolute possibility. It's just terrifying, and I may leave it to someone else. You can play whoever you want in this league because we'll talk about some of these other – we've already talked about some value plays. We'll talk about some other ones later. You could also look at Judah Mintz and Joe Girard. If this game is going to be back and forth, right, like, and Edwards isn't going to be on the floor, you're probably going to want to try to get one of these guys. I would much rather play Girard just because he has, like, ridiculous three-point ability and, can really just go bonkers. Shooting 38% from three. He has an 18% assist rate, but that 30% shot rate is nice. Judah Mintz is basically the opposite. He wants to attack the rim. He wants to create drop-off dimes. Those mostly go to Malik Brown based on their, kind of their advanced statistics. So whenever we do play Mintz, we play a lot of Malik Brown. He's 6,800. Malik Brown, for me, this kind of just isn't the spot for me. Even at that price, the price tag is really what's keeping me off. If he was 5,600 or 5,500, I may want to take a look at him, but he's just priced out for me. And then you can spin the wheel on, the fifth guy that's going to play. It's usually between Justin Taylor. It's usually between Chris Bell. I'm going to let Eric talk about, one of those guys. Is there a name you can click there? Because they're both cheap.
Yeah, I mean, the price is right on both of them. I feel like you got to go with the hot hand here. Chris Bell coming off of a 20 spot, actually saw a price decrease after that 20-point outing where he was out there for 34 minutes, right? So it's basically
whoever is he going to be out there for 34 minutes? Tell me that.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who can answer that question, I think, has the key to this slate, right? I think that the most recent rotation, has a tendency to at least get a little bit more run, especially when it works, right? Like you talk about him coming out there, got a bunch of shots up, did score 10 points, got into a little bit of foul trouble, but pulled down 6 boards as well. So, for a rotational forward, he did enough to where I think he should get a bit more run, right, in terms of time on the court. But I mean, it is as big a roll of the dice as anything else in this game, right?
20
you
fantasy
go back,
points, and he missed
you go back
8 threes.
4 games in his log, and he had negative points, right? Negative 0.5 points. Like, it is an absolute crapshoot. But that's kind of the nature of the beast with really this entire Syracuse side, right? I'm convinced that anytime you click the button on Jesse Edwards north of 9K, your credit score actually goes down. Like, it's a bad life decision to really depend on a whole lot from the Syracuse side.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, and you just look at it. Bell was 1 for 9 from 3. Like, is that going to put him on the bench for the next game? And we're going to see Taylor out there? I don't know. Jay, you got a take on the Syracuse team? Because it feels like the other side's a lot easier to figure out. But if you can unlock the Syracuse side.
You hit it on the head. Yeah. Anything that I'm going to be messing around with in this matchup is going to be on the NC State side. And the Bell play is intriguing. It's just that salary saver at the end. You're looking 3,600. Looks so juicy, and I do think because of people are going to be looking at that game log, I think he's going to be that percentage is going to be higher than it should be, and I'm not quite sure if I'm even willing to slot him in that particular regard. Hey, a little bit of housekeeping here, guys and ladies, before we move on to the tiers. The producer got in my ear a little bit ago and let me know that there are actually 20 players at 8K or higher on this slate. I was looking at just the guards, people with guard eligibility a little bit ago. So there is a little bit of pricing, not necessarily a ton of them in terms of what we have covered so far. A couple of those more expensive guys. A lot of the guys that we've obviously focused on have been in that middle tier with a couple of those higher price guys sprinkled in. But these are the games with the higher projected totals. These are the games with the pace ups. These are the opportunities where if you're going to spend that money on some of these players, the opportunities will be a little bit more available to be had.
But to that point, Jay, I mean, even if there's 20 guys, you could still play whatever lineup you want because we've talked about, Katie Johnson at 4,100. We talked about Golston at 4,600. We talked about Store at 5K. Like, you've got so many options. We just talked about our guy, right? You can play Chris Bell, and then there's more guys. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, like the last few slates, it's been like, where's the value? We got to wait till lock and 10 minutes before and just reconfigure our entire lineup. We can actually go into this one with value and feeling comfortable before having to rush decisions 6 minutes before the lock.
Yeah, so it's interesting to have that perspective. And even though we were maybe approaching it from a different angle earlier, thinking that it's interesting how in a slate like this, with the way that the prices are sort of lining up, it's really not that all different when it comes down to it. So let's get into those tiers now, the high, mid, and low tiers. If there's anybody in these price points you'd like us to hit on and you are hanging out with us, drop us a line in the chat and we will get to them. Let's start in the high tier here, everything above 7,500. There are some expensive options here on this slate. At what point, with some of these guys, Mike, we talk about that 4X, 4.5X, 5X, and I love me some Bayless Shireman. I love to watch the guy play. But when you're looking at, a 23, a 21, and a 25 in the last 5, and you're looking at 8,700, it's getting a little bit harder for me to want to pay that price for him. Is he somebody you'll target in this higher tier and maybe a couple of others that you might be interested in?
Yeah, look, the Shireman is definitely a GPP only play just because we know that he could double with 6 assists at any moment and knock down 4 threes. It just wouldn't surprise us and rack up a 40 spot. So he has to be in the pool, especially in a man, this is going to be an awesome game, this game at Providence, just from a viewing perspective here. Providence coming off the terrible loss to St. John's. Now they get a red hot Creighton team coming in. Like it's going to be, I mean, I think it's a 1 point total right now in Ken Palm. So it's going to be one of the games I'm going to be focused on, even though I'm probably not going to have a ton of DFS guys in it. But Baylor Shireman is one guy that I'm looking at because the ball bounces right a few times, and he goes quickly from a 25 to a 38. It's just crazy how that happens with him because he can rebound, he can start the break, he can dish out the assist. That's just the things that he does. He can rack up fantasy points in a hurry. So he's in the player pool. Maybe a shot or two on him out of 20 lineups. Jalen Pickett's in the same boat. Now, he destroyed Illinois earlier this year. He's gone for 45, 50 multiple times. People are probably going to be off him because he's kind of come back down to earth where he was almost an auto play at 9,500. Feels like 3-4 weeks ago. So 9,800. Probably not a lot of people clicking that button. So I'll be going to him some here, and then Keontae Johnson from Kansas State. The price starting to creep closer to 8K. Right, there's the Noel factor. It's a little more expensive. Look, at Oklahoma, it's not going to be pretty. They're coming off on a little bit of a skid as Kansas State. So, if you're looking for a cheap 38-40 burger at 8,200, like he's probably your guy, but it's not going to be pretty watching it happen for sure. So, those are some of the guys here. I really like the plays. These guys are more of like, high ceiling but lower floor plays. Is there anyone that kind of sticks out to you, Eric, on the high tier side?
Yeah, honestly, he kind of fits the opposite mold from what you just said there, and that's Jalen Wilson. He's coming in at 9.7K. He's damn near the price king, couple $100 below that top slot in terms of price overall. It really solid floor, maybe one of the safest floors in the game this year. Taking better than 6 3-pointers per game. He's draining them at a pretty good clip, shooting 363 there, 36% from range. But for a player that's going to be pushing 10K, like he's got some low 40s, some very high 30s on the board, but you're really looking to get kind of into the mid to upper 40s or even splash of 50 or so to pay off that price tag. I think the thing that he might have going for him in this slate or on the slate in particular is he is heading on the road. He's got a tough matchup against a pretty solid D in Oklahoma State. So I don't think he'll be popular. So, if this is the game where he gets to that ceiling, you're going to be among, a 97th percentile sort of finish for Jalen Wilson. But, for me to get up to 10K, I want to see him getting to that ceiling a little bit more often.
No doubt about it. My guy, Shireman, that Creighton team is so fun to watch play. And like you said, Mike, the ability for him to just drop a 45, 50 burger at any moment is just so intriguing. And, I'll probably dilly-dally around with him a little bit. Sprinkle him in to the lineups. All right, let's move on to the old mid guys here. That's, what do we got, 5,000 up to 7,500, around that range here. There's a handful of cats here, including one of the best names in the game. But we talked about those more expensive plays, Mike, and how there are 20 of them 8K or higher. When you look in this mid-range, and you said, you mentioned we got to get a chance to be creative here because of some of these price points. How can we look at some of these games with maybe some lower totals, but with some stars that can really stand out even at these prices?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a star. I mean, Grant Sherfield, he hasn't really played like it recently, but that's why it makes me like him because he could put up a 35 or 40 here against Kansas State. He's at home, right? Like they need a couple of wins here to keep hope alive, right? So this is a big game for Oklahoma. So I expect a really good effort from him. So I'll be looking at him at 7K. You shave 100 off, you can get to Chucky Hepburn from Wisconsin, another important game. These are teams that are going to be fighting for any chance to even just get into the, not even the bubble, but, to just be knocking on the door come, conference tournament time. He's playing Michigan, more of a floor type play. So if you're in like want to be different in a single entry, I definitely would look at Hepburn. Derek Lively, man, I don't know if I can click this button, but he's in play because it's against Notre Dame. So a lot of this Duke side really revolves around Filipowski and whether or not his ankle is going to hold up and if he's going to play. But if he's out, man, a lot of these guys are going to be in play. If he's in, I don't know, man. I don't know how much I want of any of these guys, really. It's just more spread out that way. Like Mark Mitchell also becomes kind of interesting if Filipowski's out. But Lively is someone that could get you a 40, but he could also get you a 7, which he did last game, and be on the bench with foul trouble because he doesn't know how to not foul, which is kind of crazy. Bryce Thompson, look, he played well against Kansas. So you're at home. It's a revenge spot. He transferred from Kansas a few years ago, so I don't mind going back to him. He's someone that could put up a 30 spot. So it's just some of the guys I'm looking at. Eric, is there anyone that sticks out to you in this mid-tier?
Yeah, I don't mind that Lively call if Filipowski is in fact out, right? We've been attacking the Notre Dame side with big men all year. And another team that has been getting abused by big men throughout the majority of the season is Penn State. And now waiting for them on the other side of the court is Dane Danger, fresh off of a nice little haircut on his price tag. He's down below 7K. He's at 6.8. It feels like things are trending in the right direction for him, right? He's gone north of 30 minutes in 3 of his last 4 games, and in each of those games, he's in kind of the mid to high 20-point range while he's on the court that much. And specifically, you look at this matchup against PSU, and Danger is out there averaging 6 rebounds per game. Obviously that's higher. It's a little bit closer to 7 over his last 10 as he's been getting more and more run. He's averaging better than 2 stocks per game, right? Like you're seeing big men just absolutely eat the Nittany Lions lunch, and Danger has got a nice price tag to go with it. I don't think he's going to be quite as popular as Matt Mayer, sitting there with the dual eligibility for a few $100s more. I think if people are trying to take advantage of the Penn State side, they might try to lean on the versatility from a roster construction standpoint. So if Danger is going to be overlooked, that's the type of play I want to make a priority.
Danger! Yeah, man, one of the best names in the country. Gotta love this guy. First time under 7K in exactly a month. I'm in on Danger tomorrow. All right, one more tier here. That low tier, the Barry White tier, the Teddy Pendergrass tier. We got a couple of cats here looking for some salary savers. Another Duke guy, Filipowski's injury status is obviously up in the air, going to play a little bit. And he just, what did he have, that goose egg the other night in that controversial game, and just had the bagel. He's a little hurt, a little nicked up allegedly, but we'll watch that stuff. So talk about, Mike, maybe somebody from the Dukies, a couple more guys in this lower tier.
Yeah, there's Ryan Young. And if Filipowski's out, sign me up for some Ryan Young against Notre Dame. Talk about a guy that can absolutely destroy the glass. It could probably go 14-11 in this spot, and I would not be surprised. So 4,900, I'm going to have some shares of him. He's had some big games, when they've had some injury issues. Filled in nicely as a transfer from Northwestern. So, I'll be going to that. Well, Milo Uzan, he's 4,400. We talked about Grant Sherfield. If you don't want to pay that much for Sherfield, you can look at Uzan. It was burned by Joe Bamisil at 3,500. I would look at him again in a home matchup this time, but it feels safer because Uzan's got the minutes right. Should play about 30 minutes, and no one's really going to play him at 4,400. But he's flashed 25 to close to 30 fantasy point upside in the past. More of a not my favorite cheap option, but he's someone to be different. If you want to, he's kind of more of a last man in if you find yourself at that annoying 4,500, 4,700 where, you've got the punt play at 3,600, but the next guy that you really want to play is 5K. He's kind of fits right as that last man in. And then I think everyone's going to go this well here, man. I actually watched this kid play. Actually had LSU covering. I don't think they ended up doing it. They were down by 30 at half to the Aggies. They got close to covering, but didn't quite get there. It's Tyrell Ward. He's 3,400, and this is kind of a lost season for Matt McMahon. And they don't really know what they're doing with the roster. KJ Williams, I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know what's going on with half of these guys. I know Adam Miller is going to shoot 1,000 shots, but he doesn't do much else. So for me, Ward, talented player, man. They want to develop him for next year. Going to Georgia, put up 23 fantasy points last game. He's probably my lock from the low tier. Someone that I'm probably going to unfortunately find on like 16 out of my 20 lineups. So, yeah, I really like Ward here. Is there anyone else that maybe sticks out to you? Maybe more of a leverage or GPP type play for you, Eric?
Yeah, we'll stick to the same drumbeat, right? If Filipowski is out, you mentioned Ryan Young being able to clean up the glass against Notre Dame. I also think we can make a similar case for Dariq Whitehead coming in $500 cheaper, 4.4K. It's been kind of up and down as he's been getting back onto the court from injury recently. At 4.4K, he needs low 20s to feel pretty good about that price tag. He definitely has that potential, especially against a Notre Dame team that's really pitiful coming up against opposing forwards, right? So, obviously he is a stud player when he's healthy and when he's getting the opportunity. And if Filipowski's out of the way, maybe we see a little bit of an uptick in his minutes and his usage, and he's got a nice path to paying off that price tag.
Going to have both of these guys sprinkled in somewhere, maybe not necessarily in the same lineup, but picking and choosing, like Mike says, spin the wheel of Dookie fun and pick one of them. Slot them in because it looks like Filipowski is probably on the wrong side of that questionable status. I'd be surprised if he played tomorrow. So, this is an interesting spot, and somebody, one of these guys – 25, like you said, Biggs, 30 spot, maybe even, getting into with this price tag. This is the type of salary saving that you got to do to win in these tournaments. All right. Made it through our tiers. We made it through our showcase games. It is now time for the critically acclaimed, award-winning, hasn't actually won any awards yet, Core Four, brought to you by the captain of the ship himself, Mike Collins. Mike, who is in your Core Four for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think what we should do here is, I don't want to steal all the thunder, man. Let's let our guy Eric throw a Core Four out there, man. I know mine was on fire, and I'm talking through the slate, man. I feel like he's probably got some similar plays. So let's see what our guys got here. The Baron of Bread.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It might not have won any official awards, but lately the Core Four has been winning the All Flames award, right? Every time we fire these dudes up, we got the little flame icon next to them, which we're looking for. For me, I'll start with the last guy that you talked about, Tyrell Ward. Coming in at 3.4K can absolutely heat up for the Tigers. So like him as a salary saver. Go back to the top of the show with Demoy Hodge. I mean, that price tag is just absolutely ridiculous. I'll happily pay that pretty much any time that he's going to be sitting around that number. KD Johnson, a player that I had a fair amount of on this Saturday slate. He vaulted me to a decent number of cashes. Another player that he's in a solid spot in terms of his matchup, in terms of the pace, and that price tag, it doesn't take him a whole lot to get there. And then I'll round us off with Jarkel Joyner, another guy that I think is in a decent spot. He's got a really solid kind of points per dollar path from my point of view. So we'll round it off. Ward, Hodge, KD Johnson, and Jarkel Joyner are where I'm starting my builds tomorrow.
Like it, man. Sounds good to me, man. Just rotate between maybe Terquavian Smith with Joyner, and maybe maybe get a little different with maybe one of those mid-tier Auburn guys. But love Hodge for sure, and Ward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good to get the old fantasy nav perspective there on the old Core Four. Gotta like that a lot. Shake it up a little bit. Hey, we can all have a core, and we can all put that Core Four out there for us. So, it's an interesting slate here that we have. Again, 20 guys over 8K or 8K or more. But some definite, some definite bargains to be had, some value to be had here. And I'm looking forward to diving into this tonight and sort of tinkering around with a little bit. What else we got, guys?
You mentioned firing up Ward. while you were sweating out a little bet action over the course of the weekend. And Omar's jumping in. He wants to know who he can tail. Who are some of your best bets for tomorrow?
What's up, Omar?
Yeah, I mean, look at the board. I like a lot of the money lines that are actually pluses, right? So we always love those. I think for me, Penn State is interesting. At home against Illinois, I like them straight up. I like NC State on the road to take down Syracuse here. I think Syracuse -1.5 in Vegas right now. So I like the NC State money line. I feel like those cards are just going to overwhelm Syracuse in that zone. I like Oklahoma here. I love playing this time of year desperate teams that really need to win to keep any hope alive. This is a struggling Kansas State team coming to town. I feel like Grant Sherfield's going to have a nice game. So I'm definitely looking at that Oklahoma money line. That under that Jay kind of mentioned, I'm kind of feeling that. I think it's around 151. I think is what Vegas has the Missouri Auburn. I feel like it's tough Auburn defense. A few turnovers here and there, right? You lose some possessions. So definitely a game that could go under. We said even if it does go under to 146, 147, we still like the DFS angle from that. So outside of that, those are probably the picks I'm going to go into heavily for tomorrow. So I'm excited. Huge slate tomorrow.
Love it. Thanks for checking in, Omar. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us tonight. I think we could probably say this is a little one and done after dark, after midnight on the East Coast, depending on where your viewership is taking place. No matter where you are, no matter who you are, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us on the One and Done Show, powered by drroto.com and Green Screens Media, which you've done the work now. You've watched the show. Anthony G, you told us to find some winners. I think we got the winners. And once you get the winners, you get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.